Landlords in New York are taking their case against the state eviction moratorium to the Supreme Court. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, I have an update for you today, and it's about the case that the landlords in New York State have against the state eviction moratorium. But before I get into that article, go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you want to see on this channel. I'm going to work to keep bringing you articles about the eviction moratorium and other news that's of interest to landlords. So, this article, it comes to us from scotusblog.com, and it says, New York landlords ask court to block state eviction moratorium. Now, I know that I've gone over articles already where the landlords up in New York State had unsuccessfully fought, to get rid of the state eviction moratorium. So now their case is finally going to go up to the Supreme Court, and we'll see what they say because I'm really interested. They've already decided that the CDC eviction moratorium wasn't lawful. Well, sort of decided that, and that they were just going to allow it to expire at the end of July. But when it comes down to this state eviction moratorium, I don't know what they're going to say. So let's get into the article. Telling the justices that the courthouse door has been barred to New York landlords for more than 16 months and counting, a group of New York landlords asked the Supreme Court to block a state moratorium on residential evictions put in place at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. A federal district court dismissed the landlord's challenge, and the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit rejected the landlord's request to put the moratorium on hold while they appeal, prompting the landlord's emergency filing with the Supreme Court on Tuesday afternoon. It's a good thing that they did because the New York State eviction moratorium is actually longer than the federal eviction moratorium. So they're going, it says here that New York enacted the moratorium, which allows tenants to avoid eviction by declaring that they have suffered financial hardship as a result of the pandemic. In 2020, the moratorium has currently been extended through August 31st, 2021. The landlords, who write they are themselves facing significant hardship as a result of the moratorium, contend that the moratorium violates their right to due process by allowing tenants to put eviction proceedings on hold without any proof that they have been harmed by the pandemic and without any opportunity for landlords to challenge their assertions. The case is Chrysophis versus Marks. And I agree with that, okay? If they put the moratorium in place up there in New York State and they close the courts down completely, then landlords aren't able to actually remove any tenants, even if they don't qualify for the protections that are offered by their state moratorium. So that, it's wrong and it shouldn't be done like that. So a lot of landlords are probably losing money, and I think the Supreme Court should get rid of it. But of course, I'm a little bit biased, but I do believe that they should get rid of all state eviction moratoriums and all federal eviction moratoriums. So this case could set a precedent that gets rid of other state eviction moratoriums that have been put in place. The landlords noted that New York Governor Andrew Cuomo recently declared that the state's emergency disaster is over. New York cannot, the landlords argued, announce that the pandemic is over and the economy is reopening, but at the same time rely on the pandemic to keep the eviction ban in place. The ban also violates the First Amendment, landlords continued, because it requires them to give tenants forms and information about the moratorium, even though doing so is contrary to their interests. More broadly, the landlords argued, the Court of Appeals wrongly concluded that the Supreme Court's 1905 decision in Jacobson v. Massachusetts requires courts to defer to emergency public health measures. Yeah, they're sitting there and they're saying, oh, well, pandemic is over. But if you notice now, all of a sudden, there's this big push by, all these different states and all, the federal government of saying, look out for this Delta variant. So I'm sure that the state of New York is going to use that as an excuse to say that we have to keep the eviction moratorium going because the Delta variant is spreading. Well, my issue with that is that we don't have no clue if we're ever going to be able to get rid of this virus. So we have to return to normal at some point, and we cannot lay all the burden on landlords to, house the homeless, house the low income, house those who lost their jobs during the pandemic. That's completely ridiculous. It's completely out of line, and I do believe the Supreme Court should get rid of this eviction moratorium. So the landlord's request comes just under a month after the Supreme Court rejected a request by a group of Alabama real estate agents to block a federal moratorium on evictions. Justice Brett Kavanaugh provided the key vote in that case. He agreed with the real estate agents that the Federal Centers for Disease Control exceeded its authority when it issued the ban, but he joined Chief Justice John Roberts and the court's 3 liberal justices in voting to keep the ban in place because it's scheduled to expire soon. The New York landlord's request goes to Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who deals with emergency appeals from the Second Circuit. Sotomayor can rule on the request herself or refer it to the full court. And that is bad news because Sotomayor is one of the justices who voted against ending the eviction moratorium, the previous case, right? And so she's known to be a more liberal Supreme Court justice. It's very unlikely that she's going to look at this petition by these New York landlords and be like, oh yeah, you know what, you're right. So, it's not likely that this is going to be a good thing for landlords, but, I'm holding out hope. I'm holding out hope that they toss all these state eviction moratoriums out. They toss the federal eviction moratorium out. They're found as unlawful and they are never able to do this again.